Apache woman hid in the cowboy's wardrobe and watched him change clothes every day until. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.
Year 1879, Arizona Territory. Late evening. Cole Maddox guided his horse through a narrow trail lined with dry mesquite and scattered rocks. His back ached from hours in the saddle. He checked fence posts today, replaced a broken one, and chased a stray calf that slipped toward the creek bed. He worked alone, same as every day since his wife died 2 winters ago from the kind of sickness no doctor could stop. After burying her behind the cabin and staring at the wooden marker until the sun fell, Cole decided he was done asking things from people. Silence stayed with him easier than company ever had. He lived 30 miles from the nearest town. He rarely visited unless he needed supplies. Even then, he spoke as little as necessary, nodding instead of greeting, paying instead of arguing. Folks in town thought he preferred being a ghost. Maybe they were right. His cabin appeared in the settling dusk, small, sturdy, and familiar. The best thing he owned was the roof over his head. He slid down from his horse, muscles stiff. Dust coated his shirt and stuck to the sweat on his neck. He grabbed the reins, tied the horse loosely to the post so the animal could reach water, and walked to the door. His hand paused on the latch. The metal was warm, and the latch was pointed up, not down the way he always left it locked. A small detail, but Cole didn't miss details. In frontier land, one mistake was often the last. Someone had opened the door. He stood still, heart kicking once hard his chest. He didn't freeze out of fear, just calculation. He'd seen ambushes before. He'd survived only because he listened to instinct. One quiet breath. Then he pushed the door and stepped inside. He didn't call out. He didn't ask who was there. If a man was waiting with a knife, warning him would only help the attacker. Cole kept his eyes sharp, letting them adjust to the dim lantern glow. The room looked the same. Stove in the corner, table with a single chair, bed neatly made, rifle leaning by the nightstand, boots placed straight beside the bed, tools hung where he left them. But something in the air felt wrong. He scanned every corner again. His wardrobe stood guard against the wall, tall, deep, large enough to hide a person if they were desperate. And someone desperate had been inside his home. Cole closed the door behind him quietly, fingers brushing his revolver. He set his hat down, breathing through his nose to keep calm. Even when his pulse quickened, his face didn't show it. Emotion rarely made it past the walls grief had built inside him. He unbuttoned his shirt slowly. Tired men reach for clean clothes. Tired men don't expect ambush. He raised his arms to slide the shirt off. Inside the wardrobe, Taya stopped breathing. She pushed herself flatter against the wood. Her heart hammered so hard she feared he'd hear it through the shirts. She held the deerskin fabric over her chest, trying to keep the torn neckline from slipping lower. Every inch of her skin felt exposed. She smelled of dust, fear, and days without proper sleep. Her legs were scraped from running through brush. Her hair clung to her face in tangled strands. She had been chased since dawn. The men who wanted her didn't give up easily. They believed they owned her after forcing her into captivity when she refused to marry a violent man in her own tribe. Exiled, then hunted, she ran because dying alone in the wilderness still felt better than belonging to a man who beat her for saying no. When she found his cabin empty, she slipped inside. She hid because she didn't trust strangers, not anymore. But her body betrayed her now, trembling so hard she could barely keep silent. Cole tossed his dusty shirt over the chair and reached for his belt buckle. The lantern flickered, making shadows move across the wardrobe door. His eyes returned to it again, longer this time. That was enough. He grabbed his rifle. The wardrobe door flew open. Taya gasped and tried to stand, but her weak knees folded instantly. She fell forward. Cole caught her with one arm, the rifle still in his other hand, but no longer aimed. She was light, too light. Hunger and fear had hollowed her. Her eyes were wide with terror. Panic, shame, exhaustion, everything showed. She expected pain next, expected to be dragged outside and handed over. "Please," she whispered, the word barely holding together. "Don't give me back." Her voice cracked. That crumble of sound hit Cole harder than any threat could. A person didn't talk like that unless they knew true cruelty. He lowered the rifle slowly. Up close, he saw the bruises on her shoulders, the rope burns on her wrists, the band of dirt under her nails. She'd been handled rough and forced to run far. She held one arm across her chest to keep the torn clothing from slipping further. She wouldn't look him in the eyes unless to check if he meant harm. "What happened to you?" he asked, plain and steady. She pressed her lips together and shook her head. Telling the wrong man anything could mean death. Silence was safer. Cole didn't push. He set the rifle aside and helped her sit in the wooden chair. She flinched when his hand brushed her skin, but she didn't pull away. She simply didn't have the strength. "You need food," he said. He placed a piece of bread in front of her. She grabbed it fast, fingers shaking, and bit into it like she didn't believe there'd be more. She finished it too quickly. Shame filled her eyes. She was embarrassed to look starved. He poured water, and she drank with both hands on the cup, swallowing desperately. Cole watched, jaw tight. Whoever put that fear in her. He hoped they stayed far away tonight. "My name's Cole Maddox," he said. "This is my place." She kept breathing hard, but the panic softened slightly. "I'm not turning you in," he added. She stared at him longer now, searching for a lie. She saw none. His face carried tired edges. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixed, but the kind carved into a man who'd lost too much. He didn't look like someone who would raise a hand to her. He looked like someone who'd rather be left alone, but still had enough conscience not to throw out a terrified woman. Cole stood and pointed to the bed. "You can sleep there." He hesitated. "I'll take the floor." She looked from the bed to the wardrobe, torn between newfound hope and bone-deep distrust. The bed was soft. The wardrobe was cramped but familiar, safety by hiding. He noticed her hesitation and nodded once. "You can stay where you want," he said. "Door stays locked. Nobody's getting in." He didn't sit too close, didn't stare at her chest, even when the torn fabric made it difficult to ignore. His eyes returned to her face every time, a small choice that meant everything. He blew out the lantern. Darkness wrapped the cabin. Taya slid from the chair and curled up just inside the wardrobe doorway. Not hidden fully, but not completely exposed. A middle ground she could survive tonight. Cole stretched out on the floor, hands folded under his head, one arm close enough to reach the rifle if danger came. His heartbeat steadied. He listened to the sound of her breathing, quick at first, then slowly calming. She didn't trust him, but she wasn't running, and he didn't push for more. For the first time in months, Cole wasn't alone inside these walls. He didn't know what tomorrow meant. He didn't know who chased her or what trouble might arrive behind her footsteps. But he knew this. He wasn't letting anyone hurt her under his roof. Cold morning air drifted through the cabin before the sun fully reached the clearing outside, and Cole Maddox opened his eyes slowly, listening first, always listening, because waking up alone for so long had made him cautious to the point of instinct. But today, he wasn't alone, and that truth pushed alertness through him faster than any danger could. He turned his head slightly and saw the open wardrobe door, its dark shape against the wall, and curled up just inside it, knees tucked under her chest and arms folded around herself, was the woman who had slipped into his life like a secret he hadn't asked for. Taya's breathing was steady now, not like last night when fear chased every breath she took, but her body still twitched occasionally like she was ready to run, even in sleep. Dirt smudged her cheek. Her hair spread around her face in messy strands. The torn deerskin top she clung to all night had slipped again, exposing more skin than she likely wanted anyone to see, but she was too exhausted to correct it. Cole looked away quickly, respectful, not because he wasn't aware of her beauty, but because she didn't need another set of eyes judging her body after whatever hell she'd been through. Cole sat up, slow movements so he wouldn't startle her. He scrubbed a hand over his face, trying to shake the stiffness from the floor's hardboards. A part of him still couldn't believe she was real. People rarely came this far into the desert unless they wanted to disappear, same as him. He wondered what she saw in his wardrobe last night when he was changing, what she thought of the scars and the limp he tried not to show, whether she'd been more afraid of him or the men chasing her. He remembered every silent question she didn't answer. Why'd you been exiled? Who exactly was after her? Why did they believe she belonged to them? He had patience, but he also needed to understand how much danger stood at his front door. He stood and moved to the stove to start the fire again. Metal clanged lightly, and the sound tore Taya from sleep in an instant. Her eyes snapped open wide, body jolting upright like she expected to be dragged out into the sun and tied up like an animal. She pressed herself back against the wardrobe frame, breathing sharp and fast. "It's just me," Cole said, keeping his voice low and calm. "Fire needs starting." She didn't relax fully, but she didn't attempt to flee either. She watched every motion he made, cautious of his intentions. Her fingers clutched the fabric over her chest. "You stayed," he added without looking directly at her, giving her space. "Didn't think you would." Taya blinked once, confusion flickering over her face. She hadn't considered leaving because she had nowhere else to go, but telling him that felt like too much vulnerability, so she only answered with a small nod. Cole slid the kettle onto the grate, waiting for the water to heat, and then pulled out another piece of bread from a sack on the shelf. He set the food on the table in clear sight. Not close enough to make her feel cornered, just reachable if she wanted it. She didn't move for a long moment. He returned to the bed, sat on the edge, and spoke again, slow and even. "If I meant to hurt you, I would have done it last night." Her eyes studied him carefully as if weighing that logic. It made sense. Still, trust wasn't something she could give freely anymore. Finally, cautiously, she crawled out from the wardrobe doorway and approached the table. She kept the distance between them equal to her fear. She grabbed the bread with both hands, like before, but this time she paused before eating, glancing up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. It was the first thing she'd said since begging him not to send her back. Cole gave a small nod. Not a smile, just acknowledgement. He waited until she took the first bite before he asked the first question that mattered most. "You got a name?" She chewed slowly, then wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Taya, where are you from?" "South of the mountains," she said, eyes flicking toward the door like the direction mattered. "My people live there." "Live?" Cole repeated, noticing her choice of tense. She swallowed hard, jaw tightening. "They told me I no longer belong." Cole processed that without reacting, but inside he felt a sting of recognition. Being cut off from your own people wasn't something a person forgot. "You got folks chasing you?" he asked. Taya's hands tightened on the bread. Fear returned so quickly it made her shoulders shake. "They want me back," she said. "Not for love, not for family. For a man who says I am his. He tried to take me. I ran. They came after me. They will keep coming." Cole leaned back slightly, thoughts moving quick because this was more than a frightened woman stumbling into the wrong cabin. Trouble was on its way, and it wasn't the kind that passed by harmlessly. "How many?" His voice dropped lower, more serious now. "3," she whispered. "Maybe more soon." Cole didn't flinch. "Armed?" She nodded. "White men?" Her breath shook. Another nod. Cole stared at the floor a moment. The weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like an old coat he thought he had thrown away. He wasn't looking to save anyone. He wasn't looking to fight again. But he also wasn't the kind of man to hand someone over to monsters. He looked up. "Well," he said, standing slowly, "if they come this far, they won't find an easy target." Taya studied him, really studied him, as if seeing something new. Not just a quiet rancher, but a man who could stand his ground. She lowered her hands from her chest just a little. Cole motioned to the corner of the cabin. "There's water for washing. Use it. You can't run from them looking half dead." Her eyes flicked to the wash basin. She hesitated, unsure whether to trust having her back turned to him. "I'll step outside," Cole said, not waiting for her to ask. He grabbed his coat and nodded once toward the door. "You're safe here." "I mean that." He stepped out before she could answer, giving her privacy because respect was earned in actions, not promises. Outside, the ground crunched under his boots. Cole looked across the wide, empty land, scanning the distance for any sign of dust rising from hard-ridden horses. Sky still pale with morning, air cold enough to sting the lungs, quiet enough that he could hear his own heartbeat. He thought about the responsibility now sitting inside his cabin. He asked himself why he cared. He already knew the answer. He wasn't a man who walked away from someone cornered. He leaned on the porch post, jaw set with a decision he didn't speak aloud. If trouble came, he would face it, and she wouldn't hide in a wardrobe again while he did. Inside, Taya washed slowly, breathing easier now that he wasn't watching. She didn't understand him yet, but she recognized one truth. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't alone against the world, and that meant she had a chance. The sun climbed higher, warming the frost-hard ground outside the cabin, and Cole Maddox stepped back inside after giving Taya enough time to wash and find some comfort in clean skin and steady breathing. She stood near the wash basin now, hair damp where she wiped it with a cloth, her torn deerskin top tied tighter to keep from slipping. Her bare feet were still raw from running, and the morning light showed dirt trapped in every scrape along her legs. She looked stronger than last night, but fear still sat close beneath the surface. Cole set his coat on its hook. "We got work," he said, not sharply, just direct. "Work helps the mind stay straight, and we need to keep busy with trouble coming." Taya swallowed, uncertain whether she was included in that we, but she nodded once. She had slept in a real shelter, eaten real food. She wasn't about to refuse a chance to feel useful. Running had made her feel powerless. Work meant she could stand her ground again. Cole grabbed a pair of old boots from under his bed, boots too small for him, but likely too big for her. "Try these," he said, placing them in front of her. She stared at them, blinking with surprise. Having shoes meant she could walk farther, faster. It meant survival. She slowly slid her feet inside. They were loose, so she used leftover twine he handed her to tie them tighter. Then another moment of hesitation passed between them. She needed to know more. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Cole paused, adjusting his vest over his shirt. He didn't answer right away. He wasn't used to explaining himself. Words felt heavy when they came from him. "I've seen enough bad men," he said finally. "Don't plan on letting more get their way in front of me." Taya lowered her gaze, but her shoulders eased. She didn't thank him out loud. Gratitude was still a fragile thing in her chest, but the look she gave him was enough to show she understood. As they stepped outside, Taya kept close behind him, scanning the horizon just like he did, expecting riders to appear at any second. Cole noticed and spoke without looking her way. "We'll see them before they get close. I know how to listen for hoofbeats in the dirt. Trail dust gives away anyone moving fast. You'll have warning." "Ow?" she asked quietly. The truth was she didn't know how men like him learned these things. 6 years in the cavalry," he answered. "I tracked enemies before they ever found our camp." He didn't speak of the friends he lost in those years. He didn't mention the wound on his shoulder that still ached in cold weather. But his experience hung clearly in his tone. He was not guessing. He knew. Her fear shifted into a small measure of trust. He wasn't just a rancher living in a quiet cabin. He was someone who had survived worse and walked away stronger. Near the barn, Cole handed her a bucket. "Water the horse," he said. "Talk to him while you do. He's skittish around strangers." Taya approached the horse, keeping her movements small and calm. The animal snorted, ears flicking, but when she reached out and placed a light hand against its neck, it didn't shy away. She whispered something in her language, a soft reassurance only the horse needed to understand. Cole watched from a distance, surprised. Animals read people faster than people did, and the horse trusted her quicker than he expected. While she worked, Cole split firewood beside the barn. He didn't rush her. He let her get comfortable with tasks that didn't push her limits. Little by little, the silence between them became easier, not the frightened silence of last night, but a quiet that felt like two people learning how to move around each other. When the chores slowed, Taya turned and looked toward the cabin again, her expression shifting to worry. "Your wife," she said, carefully choosing the words. "She does not come here anymore?" Cole froze for just a breath before continuing to stack the split logs. He hadn't spoken her name to another person since he carved the grave marker. But Taya's question wasn't cruel. She wanted to understand why a man lived alone out here. "She's gone," he answered simply. "Been gone a while." How did she die? Taya asked, gentle but direct, because she needed to know whether danger lingered in this cabin for reasons other than her. Fever, Cole said. I did what I could. Wasn't enough. Taya lowered her head, understanding that kind of loss too well. She had lost her family, not to sickness, but to decisions made against her will. Her voice tightened. I'm sorry. Cole gave a short nod, not dismissing it, just taking the sympathy quietly. A moment passed where neither spoke. Then Taya's eyes narrowed on the distant road. Those men, she said, they have horses. They know how to track. If they find signs of me near the river, they will come here soon. Cole followed her gaze, muscles tensing. He scanned the open land, noting how little cover there was for miles. If trouble came, it would come in the open, no place to hide. He looked back toward the cabin. A single window and a single door, easy to defend, but also easy to trap oneself in. That why you hid in the wardrobe? He asked. Taya's breath hitched. I saw movement far away. I didn't know if this place belonged to a friend or a monster. Her honesty hit him harder than fear ever could. You did the right thing, Cole said. If I were you, I'd have done the same. Taya studied him again with a long stare. She was realizing she didn't have to justify her fear to him. He understood fear's power and its purpose. Cole walked back to the porch, leaning against the post the same way he had earlier. They'll be here today or tomorrow, he said. Depends how well they track. He turned to her then, voice lower. When they show up, I'll handle them. But I need to know something first. She looked up, waiting. You belong to no man, he said firmly. I need to hear that from you. Taya's throat tightened, eyes burning. I belong only to myself. That was the first truth she spoke without fear. Cole nodded once, a decision finalizing inside him. Good, he said. Then we'll make sure they understand that. For the first time, Taya stood without wringing her hands or folding her arms over her chest. Her shoulders squared, her feet planted in the dust like she finally had ground worth claiming. She was tired of hiding. Cole saw it, and a small part of him felt proud. Together they stood in the morning sun, listening to the quiet land. Somewhere far off, a hawk cried. The air carried the scent of mesquite smoke and the faint tremble of hooves many miles away. A warning only a scout would notice this early. Taya saw Cole's eyes sharpen, and she followed his gaze. A thin line of dust rose on the far horizon. Her pursuers had found the right direction. Cole straightened from the porch post, jaw set. They're coming, he said. You're not going back. Taya stepped to his side. She didn't hide behind him this time. Not anymore. The line of dust on the horizon thickened with each passing minute. Cole Maddox didn't rush, but every movement he made showed intention. Danger didn't panic him. It sharpened him. He stepped inside the cabin and grabbed the rifle from its resting place beside the bed, checking the chamber by habit. He had 3 rounds loaded and 12 more on his belt. Plenty if the men were smart enough to leave. Not enough if they wanted to fight. Taya hovered near the doorway, the memory of running clawing at her chest. Every instinct screamed to flee into the brush and vanish. She knew how to move silently, how to hide. But leaving now would mean facing those men alone again. And Cole wasn't a captor. He hadn't chained her wrists or demanded a price for helping her. He had given her space, a bed, food, boots. Earlier, he stepped outside just so she could wash without shame. She wasn't ready to walk away from that. Cole noticed her shaking hands. You don't have to stay out here when they arrive, he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. You can go inside. Let me deal with them. Taya shook her head slowly. Her voice trembled but held certainty. They will think I am property if I hide. She swallowed hard. I'm not property. Cole met her eyes fully for the first time since he'd found her in the wardrobe. In that look, he saw courage beneath fear, and it stirred something inside him he thought had died with his wife. He gave a slow nod. You stand where you want, he said. Behind me or beside me, but not behind them. Her shoulders lifted with a shaky inhale. Then I stand here, she said, beside you. Cole stepped closer, checking the horizon again. The riders were still far off, but closing distance. He took a breath, deep and grounded. Before they get here, he said, I need you to tell me one thing. You said a man claimed you. Who is he exactly? Taya's eyes darkened with dread just at the thought. His name is Dalton Briggs, she whispered. He is not Apache. He trades stolen horses, stolen women. She paused, voice quiet as if afraid speaking his name might summon him faster. He gave gifts to my father. He thought that made me his. I said no, so he took me by force. Cole's stomach tightened. He knew the type, a man who believed money made him a god. A man who thought violence was ownership. How long did they hold you? Cole asked. 8 days, she said. She blinked several times to stop the memories from pulling her under. I escaped when they stopped to drink. Ran until my feet bled. Her voice grew small. They laughed. Said I would not survive alone. They said I would crawl back begging. Cole clenched his jaw. He had to look away for a second, just to keep from punching something. You didn't crawl, he muttered. You kept walking. A flicker of pride warmed her face, the first real sign of strength since she arrived. Cole set himself between her and the road, rifle resting against his thigh. He wasn't posturing. He was preparing. Listen, he said quietly. If words can solve this, I'll give them the chance. But if they lay a hand on you, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The steel in his voice said enough. Taya stepped slightly behind his right shoulder. Not hiding, just positioning where she could move if she needed to. I do not want anyone to die because of me, she whispered. He tilted his head toward her, eyes serious. I'm here alive because I pick my fights carefully, and I finish the ones I have to. The riders came into clear view soon after, 3 of them. Hard-looking men with dust-covered hats, rifles strapped to their saddles. Leading them was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a trimmed beard and a black duster coat. Dalton Briggs. His confidence sat in the saddle before he did. The other 2 looked mean, but simple, the type who followed orders and bragged later. They slowed about 20 paces away. Cole stayed planted. Taya tightened her grip on the twine, holding her boots, forcing herself not to tremble. Dalton raised a hand, palm out, as if requesting a polite conversation. Afternoon, he called, voice too smooth for the violence behind it. We're looking for someone. A runaway. Cole kept his posture steady, eyes locked on the man. Can't help you, he said. Don't see any runaways here. Dalton's smile thinned. Pretty little Apache girl, bronze skin, curves a man could appreciate. His eyes flicked to Taya deliberately, like she was cattle he was counting. That one. Cole stepped half a foot forward, blocking Dalton's line of sight. She's not yours. Dalton tilted his head in irritation. I paid for her. No, Taya said sharply from behind Cole's shoulder, voice rising with a burst of anger that startled even her. You bought lies. Not me. Dalton's smirk darkened. Brave little thing, talking because you think he'll protect you. He looked directly at Cole. Hand her over. No reason for blood to spill in the dirt today. Cole didn't move. Right on, he said. Find another road. Dalton's right hand lowered casually toward the pistol holster on his hip. Last chance. Cole's breath slowed. His voice stayed steady, but the weight behind it was like stone. Don't. For a long second, the world held still, the horse shifting its weight, a hawk crying somewhere unseen, Taya's heartbeat pounding against her ribs. Dalton's eyes flicked down. He was going for the gun. Cole fired first. Dalton jerked back in his saddle with a shout, bullet carving through the top of his coat sleeve and spinning him sideways, but not knocking him off the horse. His men scrambled, startled and off balance. Cole chambered another round fast, stance never shaking. You even think about drawing again. You leave here with more holes than you came with, Cole called, voice sharp like cracked steel. Dalton hissed in rage, gripping his bleeding arm. This ain't the end, he spat. You've made a damn enemy you do not want. Cole didn't blink. Get off my land. Dalton snapped the reins, fury twisting his face. His men followed him out fast, dust kicking up as they rode away in humiliation instead of triumph. Cole watched until they were specks. Only then did he lower the rifle. Taya's legs weakened beneath her. She leaned a hand against the porch rail to steady herself. The moment the gunshot echoed, every memory of rough hands and threats clawed back in her chest. But Cole hadn't let them reach her. Not one step. She breathed out a shaky, trembling breath. You saved me. Cole looked back at her, voice low and honest. They'll come again. He holstered the rifle. But I'll be ready. Taya looked at the path the men had taken. Fear still there. But beside it now was something new, belief. For the first time since she fled, she wasn't just surviving. She had someone willing to stand in front of her when danger arrived. And that changed everything. The dust kicked up by Dalton Briggs and his riders lingered in the air long after they disappeared from view, and Cole Maddox kept his eyes fixed on the horizon until he was certain they wouldn't turn back for a surprise shot. Only then did he lower the rifle completely, sliding it back into the holster with controlled, slow movements. His heartbeat remained steady, not out of lack of fear, but because he'd spent years training himself never to show a weakness in front of a threat. Taya stood beside him on the porch, her legs unsteady. She didn't collapse, she refused to, but her chest rose and fell with the effort of holding herself upright. The moment Dalton recognized her had ripped open everything she thought she'd escaped. She could still feel the weight of his stare, the claim he tried to make with just a look. She forced her breath to slow, forced her fear to turn into something else. She would not break. Cole noticed the way she gripped the wooden railing like she feared the earth might fall out from under her. Without touching her, he stepped just a little closer, enough so she could feel his presence if she needed grounding. "You all right?" he asked, voice low. She nodded, but her jaw trembled. She tightened it quickly, not wanting him to see her fear. "I thought," her voice cracked slightly. "I thought they would take me again." Cole looked at her fully then, really looked. Not at the bruises, not at her torn clothing, not at her curves or her fear. He looked at the strength that had brought her here. A woman beaten, but not broken. "They didn't," he said. "They won't." Taya swallowed, believing that wasn't as easy for her as saying it. Cole straightened and walked toward the barn. "We need to prepare," he said. "Next time, they'll come with more men." And guns drawn. Taya followed him, keeping pace, wanting to show she was not useless. Inside the barn, Cole grabbed tools, nails, a handsaw, 2 extra boards that leaned against the wall. He began measuring the window frame. "You're fortifying the cabin," she realized aloud. He didn't stop working as he answered. "Only one door and one window means a small entrance for them. Makes it easier for me to block and hold." "You fought men like them before?" Taya asked. Cole paused, resting the saw against the wall. His voice dropped quieter. "I've had to fight men who think they can do what they want to whoever they want." "Yes." She wanted to ask more, whether he had killed before, whether it haunted him. But the hard set of his shoulders told her those questions lived in a private place she hadn't earned access to just yet. Taya stepped up to help without asking. She held the boards steady as he hammered them in place, learning his rhythm so she didn't slow him down. When their hands brushed, she didn't flinch. Neither did he. They worked together in silence that felt purposeful, not fearful. At one point, she looked at the horse in the stall, the animal that accepted her so quickly earlier. "If they come again," she said, "we could ride. Leave this place behind." Cole's hammer paused mid-swing. "I don't run from men like that," he replied. "Not anymore." "Anymore," she repeated. He set the hammer down and wiped the sweat from his brow. Dust clung to his shirt, old scars visible just above the collar. "After my wife died," he said, voice steady but heavy, "I spent months chasing the fever by doing nothing, letting the days pass, not resisting the world, running from memories." He looked toward the valley where Dalton disappeared. "But I'm done letting men like that take anything from me, or from someone under my roof." Taya absorbed his words slowly. She realized Cole's mission wasn't written down or spoken aloud. It was simple. Never fail someone again. Never let the world steal what didn't belong to it. Asterisk, asterisk. When the boards were secured tight, Cole took a step back and inspected his work. No light leaked through the newly fortified edges. He nodded once, satisfied. "Tonight," he said, "you sleep in the bed." Taya blinked in confusion. "And you?" "I'll stay by the door," he answered. "Rifle close. If they return in the dark, they won't find us sleeping." She didn't know how to respond. No man had ever put himself between her and danger without expecting something in return. Gratitude pressed against her ribs, unfamiliar and overwhelming. She looked down at her hands, unsure how to show it. Cole noticed and spared her the struggle. You earned that sleep, he said. You kept yourself alive this long alone. That takes grit. Taya lifted her chin a little higher. As I walked back inside, she paused at the threshold. She glanced once more at the horizon, where Dalton had vanished, but where she knew he would return. She expected terror. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt since before she was taken. Hope. A small, cautious hope, but enough to breathe. Inside, Cole laid his rifle beside the chair near the door and checked each bullet by touch. Taya sat on the edge of the bed, boots still on, hands resting tightly in her lap. Cole noticed her stiff posture. You can lie down, he said. No danger right now. She stared at the mattress, as if unsure how to trust something soft. When I slept before, she said quietly, they came in the night. They woke me with ropes. Cole knelt beside the chair, tension pulling at his jaw. I won't let anyone through that door. Taya looked at him, eyes locked on his. Searching, testing. Cole's voice stayed solid. You're safe here. Slowly, carefully, she lowered herself onto the bed. The mattress sagged gently under her weight. She slid beneath the blanket, pulling it around her shoulders like armor made of fabric instead of fear. Cole dimmed the lantern. He sat awake in the chair, back straight, rifle across his knees. He scanned the door, the window, every inch of the cabin with quiet vigilance. Taya watched him from the bed, her breathing steadying as exhaustion took hold. Before sleep dragged her under, she spoke one more truth, soft but full. My father would thank you, she murmured, eyes half closed. He did not want to lose me to a man like that. Cole didn't turn from his post. No father should, he said. In the dark, silence settled between them. Not empty this time, but protective. And for the first night since her capture, Taya fell asleep without fear choking her awake. Cole did not sleep at all. He listened to the quiet desert. He watched over her. He waited for trouble. And he promised himself, if Dalton Briggs returned, he wouldn't come back a third time. Cole Maddox did not close his eyes once during the night. He sat in the chair by the door, rifle laid across his lap. Every sound outside running through him like a warning, shifting grass in the wind, the horse pawing the ground, an owl calling from the ridge. He wasn't paranoid. He was prepared. The men who chased Taya would not give up after a single failed attempt. They would want to reclaim power. They would come angry. Taya slept deeply for the first time in 8 days. Her breathing stayed steady. No startled gasps from nightmares. No flinching at phantom ropes. Cole kept checking on her out of the corner of his eye, making sure her body didn't tense in fear. When dawn finally leaked through the cracks in the boarded window, she stirred slowly, like someone rediscovering the idea of safety. Her eyes opened to see Cole exactly where he had been, upright, awake. You did not sleep, she said quietly, sitting up against the wall. Cole shrugged once. Didn't need to. That wasn't true, of course. Exhaustion tugged at his muscles and burned behind his eyes. But he wouldn't admit to weakness when responsibility demanded strength. Taya watched him for a long moment, concern softening her expression. You cannot protect me if you fall asleep on your feet. Cole stood, rolling the tension out of his shoulders. Don't worry about me. But she did. She couldn't help it. Breakfast was simple, more bread, more water, but Taya ate slowly this time, aware there would be no rushing until danger reappeared. She looked at the boards over the window, the rifle near the door, the bucket by the wash basin. She traced every detail with her eyes, memorizing escape routes, safe places to duck behind if shots were fired. Cole noticed. You thinking of running? He asked. She shook her head. Thinking how to fight if I must. Cole's respect for her sharpened. She was not a damsel waiting to be saved. She was someone who had been knocked down and still chose to rise. He needed to give her more than a hideout. You ever handled a gun? He asked. She hesitated. Not a rifle. I have used a bow before. To hunt rabbits, small deer. Close enough, he said. Follow me. They stepped outside into the cold morning. Cole handed her his second revolver. Smaller, easier to grip. Taya held it gingerly at first, unfamiliar with its weight. Cole guided her stance with minimal touch, just tapping her elbow, adjusting the way she angled her wrist. Keep your shoulders square, he instructed. In with your eyes, not your arms. Taya exhaled, focusing on the fence post he pointed toward. She squeezed the trigger slowly. The blast jolted her. The bullet missed wide, chipping dirt a few feet away. She stiffened in embarrassment. But Cole was already resetting her hands. Grip might be too loose, he said calmly. Try again. She inhaled, steadier this time, and fired. The post splintered. Taya's eyes widened in surprise, then relief. Cole nodded once, approving. You'll do fine, he said. Just remember, you only shoot to stop someone from hurting you or me. Her grip tightened. I will not let them take me alive, she replied firmly. Cole turned to her, voice steady. They're not taking you at all. A silence built between them. Not uncomfortable, but heavy with reality. They were partners now, whether either wanted to admit it aloud. Cole finally spoke. There's a trading post 2 hours from here. Routine supply run. If we don't go, someone may notice and come asking questions. He paused. I need to pick up more ammunition. Taya flinched at the mention of towns. Crowds meant questions, stares, hands reaching. What if they see me? What if someone tells Dalton? Cole looked toward his horse, already saddled. They won't touch you, he said. Not while I'm there. She studied him, his height, the readiness in his shoulders, the rifle resting by the saddle. He was one man, but he stood like he could block the world. I will go, she said, though fear flickered in her dark eyes. I must learn not to hide forever. Cole's lips twitched, the closest thing he'd shown to a smile. He helped her onto the horse first. She gripped the mane tightly, uneasy but determined. Cole mounted behind her, his chest brushing her back lightly as he reached for the reins. She went still for a second. No man had ever touched her without force before. But Cole kept his hands away from her body, only guiding the horse. You're doing fine, he said quietly. With a small kick, they rode out. The trail to the trading post cut through rocky land and brush. As they traveled, Taya watched Cole from the corner of her eye. She needed to understand him, not just what he did, but why. You lost your wife, she said gently. Did it happen here? In this cabin? Yes, he answered. Fever took her fast. One day, breathing hard, next day gone. No healer? Taya asked. Cole's throat tightened. Town doctor wouldn't ride out in a storm. By the time weather cleared, it was too late. Taya felt anger burn in her chest. So you stayed here, alone, because leaving would feel like losing her twice. His silence confirmed it. She looked forward again, the wind brushing her hair back, and realized something important. Cole wasn't just protecting her. Her presence was forcing him to rejoin the world. He didn't know it yet, but she did. When they reached the small trading post, a single wooden building with a rail for horses, Taya breathed deep. Only 3 people stood outside, an older man stacking crates, and 2 women talking by the door. Still, Taya's heart pounded as she slid off the horse. Cole stood close, just a step behind her, his hand near his revolver, but not touching it. He didn't crowd her. He protected her without caging her. Inside, the clerk looked up from sorting tins on a shelf. Morning, Cole, he said. Been a while. Needed supplies, Cole replied. His voice didn't invite further talk. But the clerk's eyes shifted to Taya, curious, judgmental, slow. Don't get many Apache ladies this far out, he muttered. Taya tensed. Her fingers twitched toward the revolver Cole had given her. Cole stepped slightly forward, blocking the man's view of her completely. She's with me, Cole said, each word flat as a hammer strike. That's the only thing you need to know. The clerk raised his hands lightly, not interested in challenging him. Didn't mean trouble. Cole paid for ammunition, coffee, a sack of flour, and more bread. As they turned to leave, Taya whispered, "Thank you for speaking." Cole adjusted the sack under his arm. "You stood beside me. I stand beside you." Outside again, they rode back toward the cabin. Taya didn't cling or look behind her anymore. She was no longer prey. Cole didn't say it out loud, but he could feel it. Taya made him stand straighter, and Cole made her feel braver. They returned to the cabin as the sun reached its highest point. Cole tied the horse to the post, while Taya carried supplies inside. She moved comfortably now, not scanning every corner. The cabin had become hers just as much as his. Cole joined her inside, set the rifle near the door again, and looked around once more for weaknesses in their defenses. Taya stepped toward him, chin raised slightly. "When they come," she said, "I will not run." Cole didn't answer verbally. Instead, he retrieved her stolen revolver from the table and placed it into her hands with unmistakable trust. "You stay close," he said. "We fight together." Her fingers wrapped around the grip confidently. No man owned her, but one man had chosen to stand with her, and she chose to stand with him. Taya held the revolver with a steady grip now. Her stance showed less fear and more readiness, and Cole noticed that change even before she did. They spent the afternoon in silence, broken only by occasional conversation. Nothing personal, just what needed to be said. Where Dalton might come from. Which direction the wind carried sound. How long water would hold if they needed to stay inside a couple of days. Their silence wasn't distance, it was strategy. As the sun lowered and shadows stretched long across the yard, Taya gathered dry wood near the stove. Cole worked outside, checking the horse and walking the perimeter to spot any sign of riders returning. When he came back inside, he paused in the doorway, not because of danger, but because he saw something that caught him off guard. Taya was humming, soft, barely audible, a song from a place she had been forced to leave. The tune carried sadness, but also memory, the kind she refused to let captivity erase. Cole stood still, not wanting to interrupt. The last time music filled this cabin was before fever stole the laughter from it. He didn't realize how much he missed the sound of another life here until that moment. Taya noticed him watching and immediately went silent, embarrassed. "Sorry," she muttered. "Habit. I will stop." Cole shook his head. "Don't." His voice was calm, but certain. This place could use a voice again. Her eyes softened, and she nodded once. He set down the supplies, and they shared a simple meal, coffee and bread with a bit of dried meat he had left from the last cattle drive. Taya ate slower now, not rushing like she feared the food would disappear. She looked across the table at him, and finally asked the question that had been waiting in her mind since last night. "Why do you live so far from town?" she asked. "There are people there. Help. Work." Cole didn't avoid her gaze. "I tried living near people after," he stopped. Spoke again with more caution. "After my wife died, everyone wanted to talk. Wanted to say they were sorry, like that fixed anything. I came out here to be where the world stayed quiet." "You did not want reminders," Taya said. "No," Cole answered honestly. "I didn't want to remember hope and feel stupid for it." Taya took in his words slowly, feeling the pain he didn't try to hide. "I understand," she said. "When a man tried to take me, my father fought for me. They killed him. I could not save him. So I ran until my legs could not hold me." Cole looked up sharply. Taya hadn't shared this part before. "I'm sorry you lost him," he said, meaning it in a way that wasn't just habit. Taya nodded once. "It is why I cannot go back. My tribe believes I brought him shame by saying no. They blame me for his death." Her voice thinned. "I am alone in this world, even among my own people." Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You're not alone here." The words struck her harder than a gunshot ever could. No man had ever promised her companionship without cost. She held his eyes, chest tight with something unfamiliar. Comfort. A distant sound cut through the moment. Hoofbeats. Multiple. Cole reacted instantly, grabbing his rifle and moving to the window slit he'd left for sighting. Dust rose again from the same direction Dalton had fled, but this time, the line of riders was longer, moving faster. "At least 6, Cole said, voice low. Briggs brought more guns. Taya's breath hitched, but she didn't freeze. She stood and checked her revolver the way Cole taught her. "We stay inside?" she asked. Cole nodded. "We hold the door. One shot at a time. We make them regret every step." He motioned her behind the heavy oak table they had pushed near the door, a makeshift barricade. Taya knelt behind it, steady, not hiding. Cole stood tall, rifle aimed. The riders slowed, near the clearing, spreading into a half circle. Dalton Briggs rode up front again, arm wrapped where Cole's bullet grazed him. His face twisted with anger, the kind fueled by humiliation and entitlement. Dalton shouted toward the cabin. "Maddox, you got something of mine. I'm talking it today." Cole didn't reply. His finger rested near the trigger, ready to fire if Dalton gave the slightest opening. Dalton smirked darkly. You think you can protect her? She's a wild thing that needs to be broken. The more she fights, the sweeter she'll be when she learns her place. Taya gripped her gun so tightly her knuckles whitened. The fear she once felt turned into something hotter, fury. She looked up at Cole, jaw set. "Let me speak," she whispered. Cole didn't want her drawing attention, but he also saw the fire in her, the need to claim her voice. He gave a slight nod. Taya rose just enough to be seen from the window. Her voice carried without shaking. "You do not own me." Dalton's eyes narrowed when he saw her strength standing instead of cowering. "You belong to the man who can hold you," he spat. "And he ain't in that cabin." Cole stepped closer to the window, rifle leveled directly at Dalton's chest. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "She's with me now." Dalton laughed. "You think that makes a difference when I got more men than you got bullets?" Cole's expression didn't change. "Try me." Dalton raised his hand. The men reached for pistols. Cole fired first. The bullet hit one rider's shoulder, spinning him off his saddle. The others fired back, gunshots cracking like thunder around the cabin walls. Splinters flew from the doorframe. Taya ducked and returned fire once. Her bullet struck a rider's leg, sending him crashing down. She stared a moment, shocked by her own accuracy. "You're doing fine," Cole said sharply. "Keep your head down." The battle raged on. Bullets punched holes in the wood around them. Cole and Taya stayed behind their cover, firing only when they could clearly count targets. Time slowed into bursts of noise, silence, and breath. Then quiet. Gunfire stopped. Boots scraped outside. Dalton shouted again, voice furious. "You can't win, Maddox. We'll burn that cabin to the ground." Cole's heart jumped. Fire was the last thing they could survive. Taya looked at him, fear returning but controlled. Cole leaned to the window again, counting shadows, waiting for the first spark. No flame came. Instead, hooves thundered away. Fast. Retreating. Dalton's voice trailed with the dust. "Next time, we bring the whole territory down on this shack." The silence afterward was suffocating. Cole didn't relax. Not even a little. "Reload," he ordered. Taya obeyed, hand steady but breathing uneven. Cole finally set the rifle down and turned to her. "They'll regroup. Might come after dark." Taya swallowed hard. "Then we prepare." He nodded, but she stepped closer, close enough that the dust of his shirt brushed her skin. "They think I am worth fighting for," she whispered, surprise mixing with determination. "Worth dying for." Cole looked into her eyes, strong, fierce, alive. "No," he corrected softly. "You are worth living for." The words hit deeper than the bullet Dalton had fired. Outside, dusk bled into night, and danger still waited. But inside the cabin, a bond had formed, not in fear, but in the act of standing together. And that bond made them more dangerous than any number of riders outside. The evening dimmed into a heavy darkness, the kind that wrapped around the cabin like a warning. Cole set extra rounds on the table within reach. He checked the door again, then the window. Every board held firm. Every lock was secure. Still, his jaw remained tense. He knew Dalton Briggs wasn't done, just regrouping, maybe waiting for reinforcements or for the cover of full night. Taya sat on the edge of the bed, revolver resting across her lap, her knees drawn up slightly as if balancing caution with readiness. She stared at the door like she expected it to crash open any moment. But her breathing was controlled now. She wasn't shaking. Not anymore. Fear had transformed itself into something harder, determination. "You hungry?" Cole asked quietly. Taya blinked, realizing she hadn't thought about food since breakfast. "A little," she said. Cole placed a small piece of jerky and bread into her hands. She ate slowly, tasting every bite like it mattered. He poured her water, then sat down in the chair opposite her, rifle propped up against his leg. The quiet stretched. Taya finally broke it. "You could have given me to them," she said. "It would have saved you." Cole shook his head once. "That's not who I am." "You do not know me," she insisted softly. "I could bring more trouble. I could be lying about everything." "I know enough," Cole replied. He leaned forward, meeting her eyes. You ran from a man who thinks he owns people. That tells me all I need to know. She took in that answer as if it was something she could store and protect. And if he continues to come? Cole didn't hesitate. Then I continue to stop him. Taya set the bread down, looking away as emotion caught in her throat. You protect me like my father did, she said. Before they killed him. Cole's expression barely shifted, but a muscle near his jaw tightened. He didn't ask for more details. The pain in her voice said enough. He changed the subject to give her room to breathe. You said you used a bow before. What else did you do back home? Taya looked up again, grateful for the shift. I helped my mother make clothing, prepare hides, beadwork. I fetched water and brewed herbs. And I liked to ride. Her voice warmed at the memory. My father taught me how to sit a horse better than any man. Cole nodded. That explains why my mount didn't fuss around you. She considered that. A horse knows a person's heart, she said. So do some people, Cole replied quietly. Taya's gaze dropped to her hands. Embarrassment, perhaps fluster, brushed over her features. She changed topics this time. You had landed here long before me, she said. A life with your wife. You did not plan to take another into this cabin. No, Cole admitted. He leaned back against the chair. Didn't plan for anything except finishing what I started. Living day by day. Keeping the place running. And now, she asked. Cole looked at her carefully. The lantern's glow caught in his eyes, making them appear softer than his manner usually allowed. Now I've got someone here who deserves a chance to stop running, he said. Taya blinked. She had expected duty, protection, maybe responsibility, but not care. Not choice. She shifted closer to him on the bed, her voice barely above breath. Do you blame me for bringing danger with me? He shook his head. Danger was already out there. You just made me willing to face it again. They held each other's eyes longer than either meant to. Something moved between them, quiet and unspoken, but strong enough to settle low in their chests. Taya exhaled slowly, like she was letting go of a weight she had carried too long. Before she could say anything else, Cole's head snapped toward the window. He stood, grip tightening on the rifle. Taya moved instantly behind the table barricade, revolver ready. Boots crunched outside, more than one pair. Lantern light flickered as the wind pushed against the cabin walls. A horse snorted somewhere close. Shadows shifted outside the door. Dalton's voice cut through the dark. Maddox, third time's the charm. You can't protect her forever. Cole positioned himself at the door. I'll protect her as long as I'm breathing, he shouted back. Taya knelt lower, fingers steady on the trigger. The sound of cocking rifles echoed outside. Dalton laughed. I brought friend this time. You think you 2 against 8 stand a chance? Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because just then, another sound split the tension. Hoofbeats, fast and many, approaching from the east. Dalton paused. Who the hell? A voice boomed across the clearing before Dalton could finish. Briggs. Sheriff's office got word you took a woman against her will. It was the town sheriff, Hayes, flanked by 2 deputies and 3 armed ranchers. Dalton cursed, panic creeping into his tone. We're leaving. You're damn right you are, the sheriff barked. But not where you think. Gunfire erupted, not at the cabin, but at Dalton's men. Horses screamed. 2 of Dalton's riders fled into the night. One fell. Dalton fired back once and sprinted toward the ridge, disappearing into the darkness. Silence reclaimed the clearing. Sheriff Hayes called out toward the cabin. All clear, Maddox. He's gone. Cole lowered his rifle slowly. His pulse stayed high, ready for a trick. But footsteps crunching closer were steady, confident. The sheriff peeked into view, lifting his hat. You all right? He asked. Cole nodded. We're fine. The sheriff looked past him, catching sight of Taya, standing from behind cover. His expression turned respectful. Ma'am, he said. Sorry it took us so long. Taya nodded, not yet trusting her voice. Hayes turned back to Cole. Briggs won't get far. We'll track him. And when we do, he'll answer for every crime. Cole didn't respond. Not yet. He just listened as the deputies gathered the downed rider and prepared to leave. When the lawmen finally rode off, the night fell quiet again. Cole closed the door, locking it. He leaned his forehead against the wood for a long breath. Taya approached slowly, uncertain. You did it, she whispered. Cole turned to her. We did. She stepped closer, close enough he could feel the warmth of her breath. Her voice dropped softer. If I had stayed in that wardrobe, if I had not told you the truth, her throat tightened. I would not be alive. Cole reached out, slow, giving her time to stop him, and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. His rough fingers traced gently along the line of her jaw. Taya didn't pull away. You're alive because you fought, he said. I just stood with you. Her heart hammered, not from fear anymore, but from something far more dangerous and real. She leaned into his hand. Outside, the desert was quiet. Inside the cabin, for the first time, Taya and Cole stood less like two strangers bound by circumstance and more like two souls choosing to stay exactly where they were. The danger had not vanished, but hope felt closer than ever. The sheriff and his men disappeared into the night, the fading echo of hooves leaving the land still once more. For the first time since Taya had crept into Cole's wardrobe, danger no longer loomed at the door. But neither of them moved for several long seconds, standing inches apart in the dim lantern glow. Taya looked up into Cole's eyes, eyes that had watched over her, fought for her, and refused to abandon her despite every reason a lone man might have had to walk away. Her breath trembled, but not with fear. It was something deeper, unfamiliar, hopeful. Cole's hand rested against her cheek a moment longer. He started to lower it, uncertain, not wanting to push past what she was ready to give. But Taya caught his wrist gently, holding his hand in place. I do not want you to stop, she said, voice soft but sure. Cole's breath slowed. He brushed the back of his fingers along her jaw, marveling quietly at how strong she looked now compared to the terrified woman he found hiding in cotton and shadows. You're safe now, he said. They won't take you again. I'm safe with you, she whispered. She leaned closer before doubt could return. Cole met her halfway, their lips touching slow at first, tasting caution and promise together. Taya's hands slid up to his shoulders as she pressed slightly into him, her heartbeat quick and alive under his touch. Cole held her gently, like something precious, not fragile, but worthy of care. When their lips parted, Taya stayed close, forehead resting near his, eyes closed in relief. I never thought I would feel anything except fear again, she said. You changed that. Cole felt his heart tighten in a way he hadn't allowed since burying his wife. He didn't speak right away. Words always came slower to him than actions, but when he did, they held weight. You brought life back into this place, he murmured. I was just breathing before you came. Taya blinked up at him, her eyes warm under the lantern light. Then let me stay, she said. Not because I need protection, but because I choose here. Cole rested one hand over hers. Stay as long as you want, he said. Stay forever if you feel the same tomorrow. A small smile lifted her lips, not wide, but real. Tomorrow and every day after, she promised. Cole took her hand, guiding her to the bed. He didn't rush, didn't demand. They lay side by side above the blanket, close enough for warmth, his arm curved beneath her shoulders, her head resting lightly against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, a sound she trusted. Outside, the world slowly reset. The sheriff's men traveled farther away to bring Dalton Briggs to justice. The horse in the barn settled down with a quiet snort. The wind eased. The land sighed. Taya spoke into the quiet. What becomes of us now? Cole looked toward the roof beams overhead, voice thoughtful. Sheriff Hayes will arrest Briggs. When word spreads, no other man will try claiming you. He shifted to see her face. You're free to start a new life. Anywhere you want. Taya lifted her chin. I want that life here. Cole searched her eyes a long moment, not doubting her, just letting the truth settle deeply in him. Then you'll have it, he said. Her fingers traced along the fabric of his shirt, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath. And you, she asked quietly, will you still want this? Want me? Cole didn't hesitate. I want you here when morning light touches these walls, he said. I want to hear you humming again. I want to see you ride my horse and not be afraid to laugh. His voice dropped lower, honest. I want a future that doesn't end in silence. Emotion filled her eyes, and she leaned up, kissing him again. A long, slow kiss sealed by choice, not desperation. They lay together like that for a while, breathing in sync, the cabin no longer a hideout but a home. Cole closed his eyes only when he felt her relax fully into sleep, his arm wrapped around her, as if he'd been holding her like that for years. Morning came gently. Sunlight slipped through the small gaps in the window boards, streaking across the room in stripes of gold. Taya woke first, still wrapped in Cole's arms, still safe, still chosen. She smiled, the first true smile she had allowed since her father's death. Cole stirred, eyes opening to find her watching him. Still here, he murmured, voice rough from sleep. Still choosing, she replied. He breathed out slowly, relief, gratitude, and something like happiness warming the sound. They stepped outside together, the desert wide and open before them. Cole slipped an arm around her back. Taya leaned into his side easily. The weight of what they survived together sat behind them like a closed door. What now? She asked. Cole looked out toward the distant hills, not running from life anymore, but standing ready for it. Now, he said, we build something better. Taya took his hand tightly in hers. No more hiding, no more running, no more fear. They turned back toward the cabin. Their cabin, the place where a frightened woman once hid in a wardrobe and found a man who would stand between her and the world. Together, they stepped into the future. A future chosen, a future earned, a future where love stayed and protected for good.